Assalamu alaikum and welcome to In Conversation. I'm your host, Patel. I'm joined today by a guest whose story has sparked debate across academic and human rights circles. Usama Ghanem, a suspended student from King's College London, is drawing attention to a growing controversy at one of the UK's leading academic institutions, the King's College in London. Disciplinary action against an international student has raised serious concerns, and in this case, Usama Ghanem, a second-year international relations student from Egypt, has been an active voice in student protests, particularly in support of Palestinian rights. His activism has led to repeated disciplinary measures, culminating in an indefinite suspension that now threatens his visa status and his academic future. In May 2024, Osama joined a peaceful encampment on campus. Later, at a KCL alumni event, he was reportedly assaulted by security staff after being granted permission to speak. This incident triggered a disciplinary review and a cease and desist order barring him from future protest activity. The situation escalated in February 2025 when Osama challenged what he described as pro-genocidal rhetoric at a campus event. A complaint was lodged by the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, and Osama was suspended indefinitely, a decision that could result in his deportation to Egypt, where we know political dissidents face grave risks. Critics argue that King's College London has disproportionately targeted Osama despite his known vulnerability. His family has faced previously political persecution in Egypt, a fact disclosed to the university. And in May 2025, Osama joined another protest outside London, outside of the London Defence Conference hosted at King's and attended by Prime Minister Keir Starmer and defence industry leaders. Once again, Osama was singled out for disciplinary action. Supporters are now calling on King's College London's president and principal, Professor Kshitij Kapoor, to overturn the disciplinary decisions and reinstate Osama. A King's College London spokesperson said, "As we have made clear, students are not subject to disciplinary action on the basis of lawful protest or affiliation, and it is untrue to suggest otherwise." As a university, we fully support and are committed to upholding the right of freedom of speech within the law, and we have and will continue to support the right of protest. However, the safety of our students and staff is our priority, and where behaviour breaches university regulations, we will investigate them in line with our robust processes and procedures to ensure that an inclusive and safe environment is maintained on campus. Osama's here, so let's speak to him, and let's begin with, well, right at the start. Tell us, Osama, you came to London to study at King's College London. What were you hoping to do? What sort of environment did you want to be in, and why King's College London?
Thank you for having me. I came to King's College London because I wanted to study politics and international relations. I kind of lived most of my life in Egypt, a country where I witnessed the Arab Spring and I witnessed a lot of political unrest, you can say. And for all of this time, I really wanted to get a clear and a free education in politics because I deeply believed that my country, Egypt, and the wider region, the entirety of the Arab world, the Muslim world and the Middle East, needs this political education so desperately to be able to make our life and our political regimes there and hold them to account, etc. So I came to King's College London believing that it's a free institution and it's a place that I can learn politics in truly and freely and be able to engage in what they actually, even King's College London advises and encourages to do, which is critical thinking, etc. So I came to King's College London hoping that this is the kind of education that I would get. I study in the War Studies department, which is notorious for its political education and research. So when I came into King's College London, I was hoping to that kind of education.
Were you ever expecting to be involved in political activity? You came from Egypt, you know the environment, many say, is quite suffocating. You come to London and obviously, despite your experiences, or in spite of your experiences, people can express their political opinion a lot more freer than they would in other parts of the world. Did you expect that when I come to London, I'll continue perhaps expressing my political beliefs, or were you here solely because you wanted to focus on your academic career?
I don't think you can separate them from each other. I think you can never have a truly prosperous academic career without really engaging in politics and describing your opinions freely. However, of course, when I came, especially to King's College London as a university, I expected that there is a climate of freedom of speech, there is a climate of academic freedom that would allow me to not only receive that education, but challenge this education, as there's no form of education that is actually honest and true and authentic without being able to challenge that education. We know this through all of the history and the legacy of education we have across the history of mankind, that there's no education that is actually and truly authentic without being able to challenge the ideas that you are being granted with. But of course, when I came to King's College London, I thought, at least this is how it's being promoted, that there is a bigger space for freedom of speech, that it's not an authoritarian institution or regime for that matter. But as you can see, my ideas and expectations were not as true as I thought they were.
When you got here, your cohort, your fellow classmates, were they from a similar sort of background? Were they as politically charged as you were, or would you describe yourself as being a bit of an outlier?
No, I think I always expressed my opinions regardless of kind of the situation or like the environment that I was in. I would say that a lot of people around me and throughout my entire years in the university have always expressed opinion. I've expressed I've expressed their opinions, etc. So I wouldn't say that necessarily I was an outlier in terms of my expression. There's a very growing, not only student movement in general, but student movement in King's College London that tries to hold the university accountable to that. And I was not unique in that fight. I had many classmates, friends, etc. that joined me in that fight.
And just going back to your upbringing in Egypt, perhaps I should have touched on that a little bit earlier, but tell us a bit more about that. I mean, you come across as very well spoken, very highly educated, and obviously very intelligent. What did you do in Egypt which propelled you to come to King's College? I mean, what were you studying and what were your sort of ambitions? I know you mentioned going back to using your degree to come back and sort of further propel yourself into helping perhaps people in your region.
I mean, look, I was born in 2003, and then obviously being born post 9/11, and then the Arab Spring happening in 2011, and then all of the political climate we lived in the so-called Middle East, you have a very intense political education when you live in that place for the time that I lived in. Just in my lifetime, I witnessed a revolution, a military coup, and a political unrest, there's some countries that don't live that in centuries. So my point is to say, I had a very intense political education. My father was a university professor. My father was very involved in university kind of activism, etc. So I come from a family that has a lot of history with politics, and I come from a very kind of politically educated and conscious family, I would say.
And then when you commenced your studies, obviously it came at a time when huge events were taking place in your region, or the region where you come from. Did that impact you straight away? I mean, or was it more gradual? I mean, how did that come? I'm talking specifically about, the events in October 2023 and then what transpired after that. Or perhaps there was something even earlier to that. I don't know. I mean, you tell me.
I mean, look, I've always had a very strong commitment, first and foremost as a Muslim, to fighting injustices. That is a core idea of who I am, right? Of course, at the sort of, not only the start, but the upgrade of the Israeli crimes in Gaza, and also connecting that my own university invests tens of millions of pounds in Israel and in the military complex that kills Palestinians every single day, not indirectly, invests directly there. Of course, it propels you to do something. It's at the end of the day, it's you Muslims, brothers and sisters, and it's human beings that are getting massacred there. And it's very hypocritical to be receiving an education about human rights and politics and international relations. And then it's almost ignorance to kind of receive this education and then see it happening in front of your eyes, but then turn a blind eye because of whatever you can tell yourself to sleep. And was not one of the things that I was ready to do. So for me, the topic of occupation, the topic of apartheid and killing has been something that I'm not ready to see happening and not say something about. And that is, again, through all of my life. I was 7 years old when the Arab Spring happened. I was 9 years old when the Rabaa massacre happened. I watched those things as a person who's seeing it for the first time and a first-hand experience. When you see something like this, you just can't kind of turn a blind eye there.
And so you've come to London, you've started your studies, you come across as somebody who's very political in the whole fibre of your being ekes out in terms of the political nature of how you see things. And I know a lot of people in the Middle East are that way inclined because of events that have taken place ever since the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, and then obviously the collapse of the European powers there, and then this imposition of what many regard as a settler colonial state in the heart of the Middle East, ostensibly to control the resources. This is what people see, and then governments being imposed in various parts of the region to control the population. So did you ever feel when you came to London that you are perhaps able to now be liberated from that type of oppression, the control perhaps that you were under in Egypt, or maybe you weren't, but certainly in London, then coming to such a free environment that when there were no boundaries apparently, say at King's College, when the university started its processes, you kind of felt, hold on, actually, this is a little bit similar to what I was more used to in the Middle East. Long question, but...
Yeah, no, I think you touched on a very important point here, but there's a small point I want to kind of score my differences with you on, is that I personally don't see my care about all of these things as being political. I see it as mainly being human. I think if you are looking in people dying somewhere else by the hundreds of thousands, and you can't seem to do anything there, it's not because you're not political. It's because there is something wrong with the fibre of humanity in your being there. So I don't necessarily see those things that happen as out of a part of me being political. I rather see it as I would like to believe that I try to be as conscious as I can. So that's the first part. The second part about what you mentioned on the idea of the freedom and the kind of the paradigm of freedom that I thought of. Surely, especially as someone who grew up in the Middle East, there's always this vision that's being kind of injected into you that like the Western Europe is this land of freedom, is the land that where you can kind of say your opinions freely, etc. And it's the place that you can challenge people, those who are in a position of power, legally and lawfully, and your mere challenge of them won't result in bad consequences of you. This is definitely the look that's being happening. And you know what, there's one of the funniest comments I've seen recently. Someone was saying, it's kind of like one of those far right people, or like the kind of, the Zionist people that were saying, like speaking against kind of my case. And they were saying, maybe he shouldn't have criticized the institution that sponsor him if he didn't want his visa cancelled. And the funniest part here is that this is just exactly the betrayal and the issue of hypocrisy of how the West represents itself, and how, to be specific, King's College London and its academic institutions present themselves and how they actually act. How King's College London present themselves is that they tell you, you should have a critical analysis and challenge the university and challenge all of the ideas around you critically. They actually grade you in critically analyzing your essays, right? But if you dare to do that in a topic like Israel, this is where you can literally lose, or the university can happily hand you over to a regime that they know can make you lose your life. This is the issue of hypocrisies there, is that they kind of, someone like King's College London, they present themselves as this free institution that you can come and think freely and engage with those opinions, but the minute you're going to say opinion that they don't like, this is where it ends for you. And here I want to just touch very quickly in a very important point. I was cleared out by the university's own process of investigation that resulted in my indefinite suspension. I was carried out of the same process of causing any health and safety issues or risks. So the university's own process say that this person doesn't cause any health or safety issues to our community. It's just that I said an opinion that they don't like. This is the true and honest nature of the case that I'm facing right now. And regardless of what's going to happen in the future, this is how people should look at a case like this. That the university got a call from up above, from the Zionist lobby, and they didn't like the opinion that I displayed, hence why they're going that far.
Okay, so then tell us what happened in your words. I mean, obviously, there are ongoing processes, so speak as freely or as reserved as you wish. I'm not going to overly push you on that, but just for the benefit of our viewers, if you can describe what took place, what were the first few incidents that happened? I obviously said a little bit in my intro, but it'd be good to hear from you.
Yeah, as you said earlier, in May 2024, there was this kind of movement that started from America.
Students occupying campus and...
Exactly, there was the encampment movement,
yes.
Right? And this encampment movement has kind of been stemmed from the fact that the majority of universities in the UK have direct or indirect investments in especially the military-industrial complex in Israel. The same complex that fueled the killing of our brothers and sisters in Palestine, and by the way, and elsewhere in Sudan, etc. So we protested that, and we started, the student body in Kings started the encampment for that purpose. And then later on, in June 11th, there was an alumni dinner. Now, there is two Kings alumni, Dr. Maysar al-Rais and Dr. Adnan al-Bursh. There are two Kings alumni.
I've heard of Dr. Adnan al-Bursh, yeah.
Exactly. And specifically, Dr. Adnan al-Bursh, he died by being raped to death in Israeli prison. And the interesting point here is that Kings refused to recognize that Adnan al-Bursh even is a Kings alumni. So the idea here is Kings at the end of the year were to host like a fancy alumni dinner to invite their donors in and like kind of very, very famous members of society to attend this event where they give awards to their alumni, washing out their hands off of the two alumni that they helped kill by their own investments. And as a student body, we wanted to protest that. And in our trials to protest that event, we were assaulted by the security members. The security members used the tactic to strangle us by our keffiyehs, which was reported on in mainstream media and news. And at that time, I was allowed to give a brief speech inside the alumni dinner. And in that speech, I tried to hold the university accountable to its investments, etc. Later on, I was a lead negotiator in the negotiations with the university. And then I think 4 or 5 hours after university negotiations meeting where I was present in, I was suspended from university, from campus. And I was suspended under emergency exclusion, which basically gives them the right to forbid me from entering campuses without any technical due process. It's just emergency powers, right? So that happened to me. And then later on, I was placed under a cease and desist order, which basically kind of stops me from doing various kind of protests. Also, during the encampment in July 2024, the university introduced a new protest policy tailored to the pro-Palestine movement, which basically criminalizes almost all forms of protest. So that happened. And then in February 2025, the student body in Kings wanted to protest a pro-genocide speaker. I was present in the room. And then one of the students present kind of stood up and interrupted the speaker and tried to hold her accountable to kind of her opinions, etc. I was just an attendee. I stayed there, and then it kind of escalated to a protest. And then the two speakers, the speaker and the guest, left the room. And at this point, I just kind of protested with the students after the speaker left. And then later on, the campaign against anti-Semitism and various members of the Trump administration, the video went incredibly viral at these places. And the campaign against anti-Semitism wrote to the Vice Chancellor, Shitesh Kapoor, and urged him, and I quote, to take immediate disciplinary actions against the students involved, to which the university happily complied. And then they launched a disciplinary action against myself, in which resulted to my immediate suspension. They called it an indefinite suspension, which then triggered the cancellation of my visa. The idea here is that in this process, which resulted in that, I was cleared out, as I said earlier, I was cleared out of causing any health or safety issues to or risks to the King's community. It was just, as I said again, the things that we protested, the university didn't like, and they wanted to scapegoat a student to make an example of them. Of course, also the university always had this obsession that thinking that I'm a de facto leader of the pro-Palestine movement, which is, by the way, the university's private investigators that they hired with our tuition fees have said that this claim is unsubstantiated. So this is exactly the process that you're looking for, right? The university makes this bizarre sweeping allegations, and then their own process finds a lot of those allegations false, but then they do whatever they want anyways. The idea is King's thinks it's above the law. And then later on, in May 2025, there was something called the London Defence Conference, which King's hosts basically this kind of conference for the defence sector. It invited Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the country, David Lammy, and more. And also, it was sponsored by Palantir. Palantir, the company that the United Nations declared it to be profiteering off of genocide, occupation, and apartheid. So I protested this event, and what happened basically is that we were assaulted again by the security members in King's. Various protesters were sexually assaulted that day. And then after all of that happened, King's basically relied in an unsigned statement off of one of the security members. Originally, unsigned statements, according to any procedure, shouldn't be admissible as any form of evidence. But they relied on that to basically launch a third disciplinary against me in hopes this time of expelling me. And then, later on, this disciplinary also resulted in the same punishment they put on me before. The idea here is that I faced those 3 disciplinaries. Every single time I protested in the university after the encampment, almost every single time I was penalized for it. Every single time I was criminalized for it. And the university tried truly and hardly to make an example of me. So they tell the rest of the people in the university that if you dare to speak for Palestine, this is what's going to happen to you. The idea here is all of this also is born out of this complaint, out of this letter that the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism made to try to basically punish any form of pro-Palestinian speech that happens in universities. We know that what is happening here is that there is this continuous trials from the Zionist lobby to basically end as much of pro-Palestine activism, not only on campus, but everywhere else.
Well, look, at this stage, I think it's important to point out we don't have a response on the allegations you've made to King's College per se, the ones that you've mentioned. And just for fairness, I need to point that out. We're going to go into a quick break now, Usama, because I want to hear more about what's happened after these events and where you stand, and also just to explore a bit more about the interaction between you as an international student in this country and how other international students across Western institutions have had to respond to activism. We'll be back straight after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to In Conversation. I'm your host, Maz Patel, and today we're speaking to Usama Ghanem, a suspended international student at King's College London. Usama, before the break, we were talking about the various events that led up to your suspension and how you felt it was a pro-Israel lobby in this country, and also supporters of the Trump administration in the US, particularly when you were speaking out against what you felt King's College were doing in terms of being hypocritical. I think that's the sense that I got. On the one hand, they're trying to promote human rights or teaching, the rule of law, etc. But on the other hand, they are investing millions and millions of pounds into the very structures that maintain an occupation of the Palestinians. After you've been suspended, what's been the repercussions on your visa? Has it been curtailed? Have you received the Home Office letter saying you need to find another avenue or leave the country? Where are you with that?
So basically, just also a quick point to the introduction. The idea here is also the campaign against anti-Semitism publicised the letters to King's College London, and in response to the media campaign that happened lately, the campaign against anti-Semitism said, and I quote, "about my case, that King's has answered the call." So the idea here is that the connection between the campaign against anti-Semitism and my case and King's College London, I think it's less of an alleged speculation for myself, and rather than the campaign against anti-Semitism own admission with their own words. So that's the point there. On the point that you mentioned about the consequence that we're going to follow, so basically King's College London has officially notified me that the process of revoking my visa has been initiated. The university is due, as they told me, to report my case to the Home Office on the 28th of November, unless I'm re-enrolled before that.
And do you have a process to get re-enrolled?
No, not exactly. The idea here is if they feel like re-enrolling me before the 28th of November, or to be more precise, if they get forced by the public or through my legal campaign to re-enroll me before that, then they didn't report to the Home Office at least until the 28th of November, which is just, I think, about a month.
A month or so away, yeah. So in terms of your position, is it your position, Osama, that presumably you say you did nothing wrong, just to exercise your rights as an individual to speak out against what you see as a genocide, happening in Palestine, in Gaza, and as a result of that, the university has curtailed your right to speak on these issues? Or is there something much more deeper? Is it because perhaps you are being made to be an example, like the Trump administration did with Mahmoud Khalil, the leader of the student protest in the United States? How do you see events?
Yeah, I think King's College London have taken a page out of the book of the Trump administration. That's the fact of the matter that we're seeing right now.
That's quite a bold allegation, though, to take a page out of Trump's campaign.
I wish it was an allegation, though. I just wish that we were in a place that all of this was just...
Because they say in the statement that I read out that, it's wrong. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's wrong to suggest that we would do something like this,
Yeah, I mean, I can say that this chair has 7 legs, and that would not change any of the fact that it doesn't. You know what I mean? The idea here is King's College London is trying to deport a student and trying to revoke the visa of a student because of his pro-Palestine activism, and the Trump administration tried to do the same. The idea is, regardless of which angle they see it from, I don't think it's a hearsay allegation of he said, she said, but rather it is a factual statement to say that they're trying to do the same. The Trump administration has tried to deport Mahmoud Khalil for his pro-Palestine activism, and King's College London is trying to revoke my visa for my pro-Palestine activism. That's the facts of the matter. Regardless how King's College London are trying to make this kind of vague statements, it is the fact of the matter that this is what happened, right? And their opinion of kind of where was that coming from doesn't change or negate the fact that they are trying to revoke my visa and deport me. That's the fact of the matter.
And is there a process for you, perhaps, to appeal or for you or your campaign or the lawyers, perhaps, if you've got any lawyers, to put your case to the university and to make the points that you so eloquently make about, actually, this is about my political views, not, as you say, about other things. I mean, I don't know what the university's position is because I've not read the reasoning as to why they want to revoke your visa. But it seems to be quite a punitive thing to do, to revoke somebody's visa on their political views. I mean, that's unheard of. As much as we criticise Britain, it's not a place where this kind of action by any institution is taken lightly, especially by civic society, because the country prides itself on having robust free speech rules, unlike what's taking place in the United. We don't have a Trump administration equivalent over here, as bad as some would argue Keir Starmer's government has been. What do you say to that? What is that? What is the universities? I don't want you to obviously be an advocate for the university's position, but what are they saying? Are they saying it's because you've been speaking out? Because they say it isn't.
No, but what the university said exactly is that because they believe that the speech that I have made is they called it an intimidating kind of speech, etc. So the idea here is, again, let's make this as clear as it is. The university is not alleging, especially in the issue that we're discussing right now, right? This disciplinary that I've undergone because of that event in February. The university has cleared me out of any health and safety risks or issues. So the idea here is the university has a problem with my speech, hence why they are revoking my visa. And it's as simple as that. And then while you can say, for example, that we don't have a Trump administration in the UK, I think we have a Trump-like administration in King's College London. The UK is a wider debate. I'm sure there's better guests who speak on that more than myself. But in King's College London, we have a Trump-like administration.
But then, Osama, some would say, why continue at King's College? Why continue? I mean, obviously you've paid for the course, and that's understandable, but why would you want to continue in that sort of atmosphere? Wouldn't it be better for you to be at a place which respects your right to speak out freely and doesn't curtail that because of the pressure from, for example, a pro-Israel lobby organization?
The idea is very important to make a very important distinction. It's our duty and our role to hold our institutions accountable to when they make a mistake or to when they create an injustice. The idea here is King's made an injustice. When someone says, why don't you go somewhere else? Firstly and foremostly, we have to hold our institutions accountable. That's the first point. Secondly, I'm an international student. I have paid tens of thousands of pounds. Just year to date, I've paid almost more than £60,000 to King's College London. My education is something that I deserve to get out of this university because of not only the years that I've spent here, not only my financial contributions that I spent here, but it is my right under the law of this country and my right in King's College London to receive my full education regardless of the opinion I make. The idea here is that we have to be very cautious, is that you cannot just say that because someone said an opinion that you don't like, that you get to revoke their right of education that they have paid for. This is not how the world works, and surely this is not how King's College London promotes itself.
So in terms of that, I mean, you make a very powerful case there. What sort of support have you managed to generate through your campaign?
I mean, firstly, I think I've said that quite a few times, is that since the 3rd of October, I've launched a legal campaign and I've instructed my lawyers to launch a judicial review against the university's decision. But also, very importantly, there is this awareness campaign that I think everyone should be a part of, regardless if you agree with Usama or disagree with Usama. That's a point besides the case of the public campaign that we're trying to make to pressure for such precedents not to happen, regardless of what place you stand on which aisle. You should never stand behind a foreign lobby pressuring a local organization, in a local institution in this university, in this country, to allow the visa revocation and deportation of someone just because they said an opinion that you don't like. And this is the part where I'm trying to hold the university accountable, not only in the legal campaign, but also in this public advocacy campaign that I think all of us should rally behind, regardless of what position they stand on.
And you mentioned lawyers, obviously. Have they given you an indication of the strength of your case? Are you confident that you, as far as your position is concerned, that the rules are in your favour? Presumably you wouldn't be launching a legal campaign if you weren't sure, but how confident are you of being successful?
Look, I'm entirely confident that justice will prevail in this case. It's my duty as a Muslim to believe so.
Okay.
But also in the legal front, just to answer your question.
Sure.
My lawyers are very, very confident that King's College London thinks it's above the law. King's College London have broken the law repeatedly. King's College London, by the way, just as we speak right now, for example, there is the Freedom of Information Law, right? And Freedom of Information Act. King's College London, on Friday, they have violated a statutory deadline of giving me the information that they hold on me.
Disclosure,
in
yes, yeah.
Exactly. So the idea here is, this is not that my case is a representation of how King's College London thinks it's above the law. This is represented in them breaking statutory deadlines, but them also kind of breaking the law in multiple places. I'm very confident that whether that's going to happen through the legal campaign, whether that's going to happen through the public advocacy campaign, or regardless of which avenue that's going to happen from, I'm incredibly confident that justice will prevail, and I'll be back to continue my studies at King's College London. I don't have a glimpse of doubt in that. But this is my point, is that the public and everyone who believes in freedom of speech, everyone who believes that what's happening is wrong, everyone that believes that universities cannot and institutions cannot just punish people just for their speech, should rally behind this and should make sure to make their voice heard, not only to King's College London, but to the public institutions of this country, that this cannot happen, this cannot go unheard, this cannot go unseen.
Has it taken a toll on you? I mean, are you, how are you impacted by what's been, you're obviously unable to study, obviously your other classmates are continuing with their studies, I presume, whereas you're having to fight this campaign and having to undertake the pressure of a lot of negative press about you in particular. And obviously your government is probably keeping a close tabs on what's been taking place as well. Has that been, how has that impacted you?
I mean, I think as someone who lived in authoritarian regimes most of my life,
you're used to it.
Yeah, I'm used to it, but it's very hard to just get confronted with it again where I wanted to get an education.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, of course, it's a very bitter experience, and this is something that's very important to highlight, because all of what these institutions are doing is this big almost 200 years of institution is picking a fight with one of its students that it claims to have a duty of care towards, which is, they have shown nothing but the opposite. So it's a very bitter experience. However, if there's one thing I learned and try to learn from the Palestinian people, is that through those experiences, we still owe it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We still owe it to our conviction of justice, to continue holding those people accountable, to continue the fight on that part, because otherwise I wouldn't forget myself. I won't forgive myself if I let such an injustice pass.
In the event that it goes against you, what are your options? What are you going to do?
Look, my inherent belief is that, of course, there's a lot of kind of dangerousness that awaits for me in Egypt. However, I'm very confident that if all of us as conscious human beings, if the citizens of this country, if all of us stood firmly and first and foremost with the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I deeply believe that this is a winnable campaign. I deeply believe that we're going to be able to hold King's College London accountable to the crimes that it has committed.
What about your parents, your family? What's been the impact on them?
I mean, again, a very important point here that you mentioned is that, for example, my father passed away in July 2023. And my father had a long political career in Egypt. And my father's conviction was that he believed, as he was a professor himself, that the best way you can transform a nation or a region is by education. It's what he spent all of his life in. And he wanted to equip me with that political education to be able to change the future of not only my country or my region, but beyond.
Do you think he'd be proud of you?
I wouldn't know. I would hope so. But I know that through what I'm trying to do, it is my hope that I'm trying to fulfill the hopes and dreams he had of getting that political education to be able to change the world with it.
Egypt's known as the hub of the Arab world, where thinking and intellect and discourse, reason, culture, it's even now it's still classed as the place where, if you want to get a feeling of what's taking place and what the trends are in the Arab world, you try and get a litmus test in Egypt to find out what's going on. How is Egypt? What's going on over there? I mean, is it still a place where one of the big sort of incubator of the Arab Spring has been suppressed. Will that incubator ever be liberated and all of that still come out, or has that gone now? What's taking place there?
Look, I deeply believe that it's impossible for any injustice to kind of live for long. Any form of injustice. Of course, the amount of injustices that's taking place right now in the Arab world, starting from Gaza to elsewhere, is very, very, very heavy. But the idea here, and this is, I believe that I've seen not only in Egypt, but all through the history of mankind, the injustices that's taking place in Egypt and elsewhere, even in this country, it's very short-lived. I deeply believe that there will be a very soon future where those injustices don't exist.
So you think the arc of history is in your favor, or in favor of liberation theology, I suppose?
Without a glimpse of doubt. Look, we deeply believe that, for example, in our fight for Palestine, or in our fight for injustices everywhere around the world, it's our inherent belief that this fight against injustices is going to yield in total and full victory. There is not a glimpse of doubt in that, right? However, the point is, for this fight against injustice to happen, there has to be sacrifices, in which what's happening to me and what's happening more importantly to our people in Gaza should be seen in light of that. My injustice is very, very straight, and my injustice and my sacrifice is very, very, very small in comparison to them. However, all of us should jump in this wagon. All of us should jump in the ship of sacrificing for the sake of truthhood and for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we're able to see those injustices being gone from the world. And to your point about Egypt, look, I deeply believe that the Egyptian people are very free and resilient people. And I deeply believe that all of what they have suffered on the hands of dictatorship for decades upon decades upon decades, I deeply believe that the Egyptian people are going to find a way out of the injustices that we've been faced upon. By the way, more importantly, in decades right now, we had Hosni Mubarak and all of these people who have went against the Egyptian people and treated them horribly, stole them, etc. I deeply believe that this injustice is going to come to an end.
And whilst you remain very, very hopeful that the injustices will come to an end, why do you think it's the center of the world's attention? Why are the big powers, the great powers of the world, why are they being focused on places like Egypt and other countries, Syria, for example, or Turkey, or that region? What's the attraction for them? Resources is one, obviously, it's an obvious one, but prior to the Second World War or even the First World War, resources wasn't the main issue, was it? It was more about having empires versus empire. What is it now? What's the actual reason?
I think the main
and I
reason,
ask you because you're an international relations student.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, look, in my opinion, the main reason is a settler colonial state and an entity with the name Israel. In my opinion, that's one of the primary reasons, right? Is the fact that you have a settler colonial state that has this greater vision, that has occupied my country. My family has served in the Egyptian military in 1973 against the Israeli occupation of the Sinai Peninsula, right? It's the same war that the Golan Heights to this day is occupied from Syria, right? The same with Lebanon, etc. So the idea here is, right now, you have a settler colonial entity with the name Israel that is trying to go to this hunger, greedy campaign to enslave as much people as it can in the Middle East. And the idea here is, the first line of defense in that part is Gaza. And the first part of defense here is our brothers and sisters in Palestine, etc. And the idea is that through these campaigns, through this decades upon decades upon decades of this trial to defeat the Palestinian people, Israel has not succeeded. And Israel always are in pursuit of upping up its campaigns and upping up its military industrial complex with the help of the United States to try to get the Muslim population and the Arab population in this land to kind of give in to them. And the idea here is we have to understand this very importantly. The struggle against apartheid in South Africa was very connected to the struggle against apartheid in Palestine and very connected to the struggle against apartheid elsewhere. All of those fights against injustices are very connected in the nature that you cannot fight all of those people, all of the people that commits the injustices speaks to each other behind closed doors. And the idea here is whenever you find someone that's being criminalized for something, there's always other people that's being criminalized for the same thing. Let me give you a quick example here, coming back to the point of Kings. Right now, Kings is trying to deport me and trying to revoke my visa. That is a fact. However, Kings also have put 26 other students in disciplinary for peaceful protest. 26 students. Some of them for sending messages in WhatsApp groups. The idea here is whenever there is an injustice, there is people who are trying to commit the injustice. Israel is one of them. Sadly, Kings are one of them. And there's people who's fighting the injustices. And it's the point of which side of the aisle do you want to be in? Do you want to be the people who fights the injustices or that's committing it? Sadly, there's not a place in between right now.
Well, Osama, you've ended on a very, very telling point there. It'll be interesting to see what happens, and I'd like to get you back on at some stage just to give us an update into how things turned out. Folks, Osama has given us a lot of food for thought. One of the things that you mentioned, which is, it's incumbent, it's a duty for everybody to stand up and to fight, and not, it's part of, you said, it's part of your human being, that's what you are, the essence of that. And you obviously being young and all that zeal comes across. Some would just say, listen, I just want an easy life and I want to get on with earning money and making a life for myself. But for you, it seems to be a lot more deeper than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, it's a part that comes of your Muslim identity in a way. But look, I'll be honest with you. One of the main things that you look around and see is that the people who are just trying to live this lives, they forget something that's very important, that the people in Gaza were also just trying to live their life. For you to be silent, there has to be a very high degree of, sadly, selfishness that kind of have to kick in for something like that to happen. And the idea here is, if you want to live a calm life, then it's your duty for you to ensure that you speak against injustice for that to happen.
On that note, Osama, I thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you. Folks, that's, I'm afraid, all we've got time for, but we will be hearing a lot more from Usama Ghanem. And I certainly will be making sure that we bring him back on to give us an update. This has been In Conversation with. I've been Mas Patel. Thank you for joining me.